Albert Einstein was born 14th of March 1879, Pi Day, and his life was a very interesting one, despite setting aside all of his vast contributions to physics, which included, but aren't limited to, the photoelectric effect, mass-energy equivalence, Brownian motion, relativity, both special and general, gravitational waves, sticking your tongue out. He was born in Germany and was unable to speak until 3 years old. His parents hired a speech therapist to help him to start talking. He said later on in life that this was the reason he could picture things so easily in his mind. His mind lacked words early on, so his thoughts were solely visual, the origin of his famous thought experiments. Perhaps due to this, he suffered from poor memory, struggling to remember names, dates, or addresses. At school, he was a rebel, a delinquent, and a loner. He'd never amount to much, said his teachers. He would stay at home building houses of cards, and when given a compass by his dad, he was struck by the notion of invisible forces. Such began his lifelong obsession with science. He applied to the second best university in Zurich and was swiftly rejected. You'd hate to be the admissions student who rejected Einstein, but he reapplied and got in a year later. He used to skip geometry classes and got his friend to take notes for him. He graduated with average scores and was rejected from pursuing a teaching fellowship and ended up in a patent office, aged 23. He had an illegitimate child in 1902 who was put up for adoption. No one knows what came of her. It was here when he released 4 scientific papers of excellency in his miracle year 1905. He then went on to develop his theory of general relativity through the First World War. By his own admission, he said he was not a good mathematician, though still surpassing you or I, and when his old enemy, geometry, was needed in his theory, he called upon his former university notemaker, Marcel Grossmann. In 1915, he successfully completed general relativity, a theory on gravity. It wasn't until a year after World War I it was proven on the island of Principe, which bore a similar name to Newton's Principia, which first talked about gravity, by Arthur Eddington. His fame rocketed. He was awarded the Nobel Prize not for relativity, but for the photoelectric effect. Maybe a posthumous one is on the cards for the discovery of gravitational waves in 2015. But his family life suffered, so the Nobel Prize money he was awarded went to his ex-wife and children in a divorce settlement. After World War II broke out, he was offered asylum in America at Princeton University. He had a picture of his inspiration on the wall, the fantastic James Clerk Maxwell, who Einstein looked up to greatly. Despite being an agnostic, he was offered the ceremonial position of President of Israel, to which he politely declined. His work on unifying his theory with the rest of physics was still the main job at hand. He never learned to swim, though he adored sailing, or to drive, and he hated wearing socks and almost never did. What was the point of socks when shoes clearly met and surpassed their purpose? He died at Princeton Hospital in 1955, hours after being at his desk working on the theory of everything. Einstein spoke his last words, but the nurse at his bedside couldn't understand German, so they were lost to the universe. Regardless, Einstein's name lives on, a symbol and synonym of genius. Oh, and as the inspiration for the face of Yoda,